Every year, in a walled city in the north of Ireland, a crowd gathers in the cold. They raise a giant figure of a man above the old stone walls, and they set it on fire. They have done this for 300 years. They will do it again next year. The man they burn has been dead for centuries. He surrendered nothing they can still take, and yet the fire never goes out. His crime was a single word: traitor. His name was Lundy. But a name is a strange kind of ghost. It can outlive the man. It can outlive the truth. And every so often it goes looking for the family that still carries it. This is the story of a name that history convicted, and of the people who inherited the sentence. This is our name. Before it was ever an insult, Lundy was just a place and a people. In the low green hills of Fife, in eastern Scotland, there was a landholding called London. In the county of Angus, a spelling of it called Lundy. From that ground came a family, and a lowland Scottish name, Lundy. These were not Highlanders of the misted glens. They were lowland folk, farmers and craftsmen of the hard, sensible country. Dry stone walls across the fields, grey skies, long winters, faith kept plain and stubborn. For when the Reformation swept through Scotland, it did not pass these people by. It hardened them. They became Presbyterians, no bishops over them, no king who could tell them how to pray. A minister, a Bible, a bare kirk, and a conviction that a man answered to God alone. It made them devout. It also made them dangerous to any crown that wanted obedience. Remember that. A people loyal to heaven first and to kings a distant second. It will cost them everything, because soon the crown would find a use for stubborn Scottish Protestants. It would send them across the sea, to Ireland. In the early 1600s, the north of Ireland was a wound the English crown could not close. Ulster, Catholic, Gaelic and rebellious. The answer the crown chose was cold and simple. Replace the people, take the land and plant it with loyal Protestants from Scotland and England. They called it the Plantation of Ulster. And so families like the Lundys packed what they could carry and sailed the narrow grey sea from Scotland to a new and uneasy home. They came into the Drumlin country, the low rolling hills of Cavan and Monaghan. To this day, Cavan holds more of the Lundy name than any county in Ireland. We were planted there. Deep, they built with stone, a fortified wall called a bourne in case the dispossessed came back in the night. They built a kirk and filled it. They set up their looms and wove. But understand what they had become: Scottish Presbyterians on Irish soil, holding land that had been taken from someone else, loyal to the crown that sent them, and never quite trusted by it, resented by the people around them, a hard-working, praying people planted directly on a fault line. And fault lines do not stay quiet forever. In 1689, the ground moved. To understand the man who made our name a curse, you have to understand the year the world split in two. In England, a Catholic king, James, had been pushed off the throne. In his place, a Protestant, William of Orange. King James came to Ireland to win his crown back, and the Protestants of the north ran for the nearest walls they could find. They ran to Derry, a small walled city on the River Foyle, the last Protestant stronghold in the north. And the man in command of Derry, its governor, a professional soldier, was Colonel Robert Lundy. Here is the story as history tells it. As that burning effigy tells it, Lundy looked at the walls, and the coming army, and the thin supplies. And he judged the city could not be held. He argued for coming to terms. He wanted to negotiate. Some say he wanted to surrender outright, while the defenders wanted to fight to the last man. Their own governor was talking of giving up. And when the city turned against him, Robert Lundy did not stand and answer for it. He went over the wall. In disguise, they say, dressed as a common soldier, a bundle of matchwood on his back, and he slipped away into the night. The city held without him, endured months of siege and starvation, and never opened its gates. And so the man who wanted to surrender, and then fled, was branded for all time. The Traitor of Derry. Lundy, that is the story. And for 300 years it has been enough. But now turn it over. Look at the other side. Because when historians go back to the records, a colder, more uncomfortable picture appears. Robert Lundy was not a coward. He was a career officer, trained to read a battlefield without sentiment. And what he read was this: old medieval walls, too few supplies, too many mouths, a professional army on its way. By every rule of soldiering he knew, the city was a death trap. His job was to save lives, not to feed a legend. What he did not account for was faith and fury, because the people inside those walls were not calculating survival. They were Ulster Protestants who would rather die free than kneel to a Catholic king. It was ordinary men, apprentice boys, who seized the gates and slammed them shut against the king's army, against their own governor's judgment. Passion overruled the professional, and passion this time was right. The city held. A hero's tale was born, but a hero's tale needs a villain to stand against. And there he was, the governor who had countered the odds and called them hopeless. So, ask the harder question: was Robert Lundy a traitor, or was he simply a soldier who was right about the numbers, at the exact wrong moment in history? The historians who have studied him closely lean that way. Not treason. A doomed, unpopular, professional judgment, in a moment that demanded a miracle instead. History rarely forgives the man who was right too soon. It burns him in effigy instead. Now imagine carrying that name afterward. Not the colonel, not the governor, just an ordinary weaver in Cavan named Lundy, going to market. In Ulster, the word had changed. To call a man a Lundy no longer meant his family. It meant traitor, coward, one who would sell you out. It is still used that way in the north of Ireland today, a living insult worn smooth by 3 centuries of use. That was the name our people carried, down the generations, head down, loom working, faith kept, and the name was only part of the weight. These Scots-Irish Presbyterians were dissenters, not Catholic, and not the established Protestant church either, which meant they were taxed for a church they did not attend, barred from offices, distrusted from above and resented from below, squeezed between Anglican landlords who owned the ground and the older Ireland that had never wanted them there. They were of linen, and they prayed, and they endured. But endurance has a limit, and a boat. By the early 1800s, tens of thousands of Ulster Scots looked west, across the ocean, and made a decision. There was nothing left in Ireland worth staying poor and despised for. It was time to go. In 1824, a man named Joseph Lundy stood on an Irish quay and looked at a ship. He was a Presbyterian weaver, of the planted Scottish stock, carrying a name that doubled as a slur, and he was leaving for Canada. Mark the year, 1824. This is before the Great Famine. Before the coffin ships that would come a generation later, Joseph was not fleeing hunger. He was part of the earlier tide, Ulster Scots who left because the door in Ireland had simply closed on people like them. The Atlantic crossing was long and cramped and dangerous. Weeks of grey water and prayer. Behind him, the green hills of Cavan, the Bourne walls, the family graves. Ahead, a country he had never seen. He carried almost nothing across that ocean, but he carried the name Lundy, the traitor's name, all the way to Canada. And in a new country, the family did what it had always done. It put down roots. It worked. It endured. The name had survived a siege. It had survived a century of contempt. It had survived an ocean, but it had one more change left in it, and this one the family chose. In 1929, their grandfather in that line made a quiet decision. He set the name Lundy down, and he took up a new one, Mason. We may never know exactly why. A fresh start. A cleaner name for a new world. A weight, finally, laid down. But think about what actually happened in that ordinary moment. The traitor's name did not die at the walls of Derry in 1689. It did not die under a century of insult in Cavan. It crossed an ocean in 1824. And then, in 1929, it simply stepped aside and let a new name walk forward. Mason. The name on the door changed. The blood behind it did not. Every Mason in this family is a Lundy who decided that the verdict of history would not be the final word on who we are. So go back one last time to that walled city in the cold, to the crowd and the great figure raised above the stones and the fire. They are still burning a man that history may have gotten wrong, still spitting a name that was perhaps only guilty of arithmetic, and an ocean away under a different name. His clansmen's descendants are finally free to tell the other side, not to erase the verdict, only to add the missing witness, to say he was called a traitor. But a name can outlast a grudge. And the truth is patient. It waits for its family to come and find it. We found ours. This has been a Genesis legacy journey. Every family has a name that history got wrong. We would be honored to help you find yours.